This episode of Road to AAPEX is sponsored by BCA Bearings. Previously on Road to AAPEX.
The Lincoln Highway goes everywhere. It's interesting to take the trip.
The livelihood and the upkeep that they do to these places, and they're still maintained really well too. The open road is awesome to just clear your mind.
Just when everything seemed to be going so well, Blackwood's in the shop. I figured after a little bit of driving, I'd want to get them checked out.
Good idea.
Good morning, Lincoln Highway fans. Another day out here. We're heading through Nebraska today, all the way to Cheyenne. Got a couple stops along the way. And as we head to Cheyenne, we're going to start noticing the geography kind of change. We're actually going to be climbing up 5,000 feet by the time we hit Cheyenne. Nice, slow, gradual. We'll also go from this kind of soft soil that they used to call like a gumbo mud when it got real nasty out, to more of a sandy soil. So we'll start seeing some things change. Of course, the scenery will change along the way, and the people we meet will change along the way too. But we're looking forward to another day on the Lincoln Highway.
Welcome to Kearney, Nebraska, the halfway point of the Lincoln Highway between New York and San Francisco. Got a friend hanging out with me right now. Big Archway. We're gonna go inside and check it out. Looks like a really cool place to visit. Imagine taking your old Saxon on the Lincoln Highway before there were really any serious roads being built. Losing a spoke could mean the end of your journey. Or in those early days when cars were just coming out, that's when the aftermarket really started being able to assist travelers on the Lincoln Highway. Garages would pop up along the way, assisting travelers in any kind of problem that they may have with their car, and not having to rely on the dealer because there might not be one around. Right now we're outside Kearney Classic Car Collection Museum. I think I've got to go check it out. As soon as cars were starting to become more popular, the aftermarket started to evolve as well. 1912, the Boyce Motometer was one of the first aftermarket products you could buy for a car that wasn't coming from the dealer. You could pick up this somewhere else. Now what this was a radiator cap, and it was the first time that drivers could actually see, based on a temperature gauge in here, the temperature of the engine. Because this car didn't have a coolant gauge or a temperature gauge inside on the dash. And without these, they didn't know how hot the engine was actually running. I mean, these were exposed radiators. But this right here had a sight glass that allowed the driver to actually see the temperature on this low pressure cooling system. So that allowed that to do that. Boyce really went all out on these. These were available in different styles. These started in 1912, And they were really popular up until about 1927. Again, as soon as cars came out, aftermarket came out too. Interesting thing here is what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about. This is a 1919 Chevrolet. This is what would have been typical in the early days of the Lincoln Highway. A couple things you'll notice right off the bat. Of course, the large, skinny tires, and the fact that there's no windows. And what is of a windscreen isn't much, which meant you were gonna get dirty, dusty, and muddy anytime you were on these routes. That was 1919. You can see how wide open this car was. If we walk just 15 years into the future, 1934 Hudson, you can see just how quick the automobile industry changed in just 15 years. Now I've got a closed carriage with windows. I've got pneumatic tires that are now smaller, wider, provide better stability as well, and a much more efficient vehicle in just 15 years. The roads were no different on the Lincoln Highway as well. They were rapidly evolving. We're starting to get out of the muckety muck of the mud and going into gravel. Now we got brick pavers and then concrete as well. Where today, almost all of it is paved. Not all of it, but there's still a lot of fun sections you can drive on the Lincoln Highway that'll take you back to that 1919 Chevrolet and the 34 Hudson. Before I left, I forgot something. Thankfully, the guys at the Classic Car Collection had exactly what we needed for the Blackwood. Now it's a Vegas truck. See you at AAPEX.
Aishin is a trusted and reliable source for high-quality aftermarket automotive components and technology. We redefine mobility through our broad range of technologies and product lines. At Aishin, we are poised to embrace the future, inspiring movement and creating tomorrow.
When the OE part fails, count on the brand with world-class engineering, precision manufacturing, and more than 100 years of experience. When OE fails, trust Standard. What's in your box?
TYC develops and manufactures the latest state-of-the-art automotive products of the utmost quality. With the latest in engineering and state-of-the-art robotic manufacturing, TYC products are guaranteed to be of the best quality with exceptional performance. Visit tycamericas.com to find out more.
So this truck has done pretty good on gas. We're averaging about 15.8 miles per gallon on the entire journey across the Lincoln Highway. A lot of you may wonder, why did I just select 91? Well, this vehicle does require 91 octane fuel, and I know that because the fuel door says it. Now, you might wonder, what is the difference between 87 to 91? The difference is the way the fuel burns inside the engine. If your vehicle requires a 91 or a premium fuel, it is recommended to use it. If you select a cheaper, like 87, you're really not going to save yourself any money because you're going to use more of it. Because the engine is actually going to retard the timing to adjust for the type of fuel you're using. That's especially important for supercharged or turbo engines. If you're not sure what kind of fuel your vehicle requires, look in the owner's manual. It'll tell you exactly what to use. You can see now we're coming up to this 3-mile section of original 1920 bricks that were put here out in Elkhorn.
because a lot of the roads weren't paved. So having a section of road like this was a welcome sight for anybody traveling the Lincoln Highway back in those days. The Lincoln Highway is nicely laid out over here. All of the telephone poles with the familiar red and white blue and the L in the middle, telling the drivers which way to go and that they're on the Lincoln Highway. These historical parts of the Lincoln Highway are some of my favorite. And Nebraska has done a really nice job of keeping this just like it was in 1920. And you'll notice I'm following the train tracks. Not a coincidence. We've said it a million times already. Where there's train tracks, it's usually the Lincoln Highway is next to it as well. And it's really cool that it's still being preserved today and that we can take a little stroll on it as we head west towards Cheyenne. Remember this morning I said we were going to meet some interesting people along the way? That's the fun part about the Lincoln Highway. We just get out to Elkhorn, we're enjoying the 3-mile stretch of 1920 pavement, and Bill drives up and goes, hey, where's the Lincoln Highway? But tell us a little bit about what you guys are going. You guys are heading west too, but you're taking your time doing this.
We wanted to do the 3,000 miles in a weekend, and then it dawned on us, it's impossible. Right in the middle of COVID, we needed a hobby. So we decided to drive the Lincoln Highway. And we've been doing 5 to 7 day segments, basically finishing one 500-mile segment, flying home, recuperating, finding more money to piss away on this hobby, and then fly back to where we left off and then continue on. So about 3 months ago, we got to Omaha and figured that was enough for that segment. And then we flew home.
I was going to say, it took you a long time to get to Omaha to here. Geez, 3 months.
Oh,
it's only 10 miles away.
Well, surprisingly enough, we've been in Omaha for 2 days, and this is as far as we've gotten.
We know when we're done, when we just can't take it anymore, because to actually follow the route, you got to really pay attention.
Yes.
It's not.
Yes, and you guys are using the same thing. We are the Lincoln Highway Association online map, which is absolutely amazing because you can find the original route, some of the. You said you guys are going to actually do one of the controversial Denver loop, and that's what you're trying to finish out on this leg before you guys head home.
We're trying to get to Denver on this leg, and then we'll fly home and then fly back to Denver and make it up to Salt Lake City on the next leg. Today we hope to make it to
Grand Island,
which is 150 miles away, and doing the math, we average about 15 miles per hour.
Oh, well, just like the original people in 1913.
That's true.
Same speed.
we are a little more comfortable.
Yeah, that's true.
And you keep running into weird people.
Yeah.
Who's doing the same thing we are, but he's filming his adventures, and we're just pissing money away on bad food and bad hotel rooms. But so it's been
we are
real
having
fun.
a state sandwich everywhere we go. We have the state sandwich.
That's actually a good idea. Yeah.
Kate is in charge of the catering, and she has actually researched the historic sandwich from each state we're going through.
Yeah.
Isn't it today? Isn't it the Ruzak?
No,
Runza.
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 Probably like a pasty.
Yeah.
Pasty's pretty close,
Okay.
And the amazing thing about the Lincoln Highway, it's kind of a three-dimensional history book of the United States. We saw where Aaron Burr had his duel just across the Hudson River from New York. We've gone through the Rust Belt, and everybody says, the Rust Belt, 3,000 jobs. Well, the Rust Belt is actually a huge cultural swing in the industrial center of the United States, and it's amazing. Just saying Rust Belt is one thing. Seeing the Rust Belt is just phenomenal. All three of us are amazed at what we're seeing.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are having a really good time, though. Taking your time and enjoying it and doing it right. So, and I wish you nothing but the safest travels. And thank you guys. I appreciate you guys.
Good luck.
This is so much fun. Thank you for taking the time.
See you later.
Good times here on the Lincoln Highway.
Today's technicians look to the aftermarket for quality parts so they can turn their bays and get their customers back on the road. BCA Bearings by NTN provides OE quality wheel hubs, bearings, and seals to ensure that when customers come back, they come back for the great service.
Hardworking hands need a hardworking shop towel. Tough on everything from heavy metals and grease to tar and adhesives, Gojo scrubbing towels can be used anywhere heavy-duty hand and surface cleaning is required without water, even on the road to AAPEX.
For the ones who demand the best, there's a Coates machine to get the job done right. Precision that never quits. Toughness that defines legends. Coates, engineered to perform, designed to last. Visit CoatesCompany.com to learn more.
We just installed a brand new serpentine belt and a new tensioner courtesy of Continental, which was nice. They gave us basically a kit, which was really convenient. The serpentine belt tensioner itself, ours was wore. The spring wasn't as tight as it needs to be. 187,000 miles on here. Looked like it had never been replaced. It's a good idea just to go ahead and do that. Today's belts, it's harder to tell if your serpentine belt is needing replaced. The older belts, the old style, always would show cracks or maybe start making a lot of noise. But today's EPDM belts wear more like a tire, which means the ribs will wear down, making it harder to see. But they still need replaced as well. And our truck had a lot of miles, so time to put a new belt on it. And as you can see, I've already installed my coolant hoses as well. They gave us some heater hoses, upper and lower radiator hoses. Look like ours were original as well. So 22 years old, they were soft. Didn't have that kind of spring back to them in there. Kind of signs that the rubber is just really wearing out. So new hoses, new belt tensioner. Gonna get some coolant in this thing and get it fired up.
Most railroads are built around rivers. Okay, the reason for that is as you start all the way in New York and you got the Erie Canal and then you got the Great Lakes in Chicago. The reason for that is because back then the steam locomotive ran on water. That's why I think you'll see the rivers are very important for the railroads and now also for the automobiles, because the roads, they figured that the trains have already got a good route, so we might as well build a road very close to the route that they went to, or else they wouldn't have chosen that route. So I think that's where you're going to see, like Highway 30 is very close in most instances to this railroad, and other railroads or other roads are very close to other railroads like that. With the advancement of the automobile actually coming out, where we could use that for transportation, most towns would pave the road in the town, but you got to the edge of the town and the next 8 or 10 miles to the next town was unpaved. It was a dirt road, and you know what happens if the rain, snow, etc. comes along. So, but they were connecting town to town with the automobile, and that's why the importance of having the Lincoln Highway to be able to parallel the railroad, because if something happened, theoretically they could get to the railroad tracks and possibly get some help, etc. like that. Trains could stop if they had, in smaller towns, if there was an agent there or they had something what we call a flag stop. You'd actually have a flag and wave the flag, and then the train hopefully would see that in time where he could stop because somebody wanted to either get on or get off the train. So I think the highway definitely made it feasible for them to go from town to town. The automobile individualized for persons. You could go when you wanted to. You could come when you wanted to. You didn't have to have a certain schedule like you would on a train. So you had more options. Okay. The difference though was I don't know if gas stations were as readily available as you see today. Of course, the Model T and that wasn't using that much, gas versus what we use today, plus with the speed. But still, even if you were going 50 miles, you didn't have the option to plan to say, well, is the next town going to have fuel for me so that I can either continue or get back?
Since 1927, AP Emissions has been your source for complete exhaust innovation. We're your one-stop shop for the exhaust brands you know and the quality you trust. Visit apemissions.com.
United Motor Products has been manufacturing and delivering OEM replacement engine management products for 35 years. Trusted by installers for over 3 decades. You can be sure United Motor Products produces and delivers the quality products you can trust. Visit unitedmotorproducts.com.
Aftermarket Armor introduces a bed liner that has a 4-hour pot life, which is twice as long as the competition, giving you the needed time to complete the job. A proprietary formulated product giving you the best UV resistance, protecting your vehicle from sun fade for years to come. Find out more at aftermarketarmor.com.
We are MPA, Motor Car Parts of America, a global manufacturer of light and heavy-duty rotating electric, brake parts, wheel hubs and bearings, turbochargers, and electrical component testing. MPA, the global leader for parts and solutions.
I hope you've been watching the Road to AAPEX episodes and enjoying them. I know the journey along the Lincoln Highway and the preparation of the Lincoln Blackwood has been exciting for all of us. Joe and I have certainly enjoyed the journey. Some of you may be wondering just what is AAPEX and why are we going? Sit back and I will tell you a bit about the big show. The AAPEX show, or the Automotive Aftermarket Products Expo, is located in Las Vegas every year. The show is co-presented by the Auto Care Association and the MEMA Aftermarket Suppliers Group. The show is in Las Vegas at the same time as SEMA, and together they draw over 160,000 attendees. AAPEX is attended every year by automotive parts retailers, distributors, repair shops, fleets, program groups, and aftermarket executives and leaders. With over 2,500 companies from 40-plus countries, there is everything product-wise from accessories to wiper blades and everything in between. The Venetian Expo Center offers over 500,000 square feet on 2 levels for all the products and a specific area for training known as Joe's Garage. Joe's is a fully functioning shop environment to allow excellent hands-on training from industry professionals and product manufacturers. If you are interested in automotive products or how to install them, you need to be at AAPEX. With over 293 million vehicles in operation in the U.S. with an average age of 12.5 years, there is a huge business just to keep them all up and running. AAPEX is all about keeping those vehicles on the road and operating safely. Come along as we continue our journey to the Mecca of the automotive aftermarket. AAPEX 2023.
Think about 1912 and the road system in the United States, or lack thereof, honestly, especially west of the Mississippi. Not a lot of towns, definitely not a lot of roads, as we started our expansion west. And then 1914, Carl Fisher was trying to establish the best route west. And he recruited help. And so him and Henry Joy asked people to join them in finding the route. This was a great opportunity for not just manufacturers to go, but already aftermarket companies joining in on this. They said, hey, we're going to have some money involved in helping build these roads, because they were contributing money to the formation of the Lincoln Highway. They also got to use it as a test bed for their products. NTN, or Bauer as it was back then, they're still Bauer today, but they're part of the NTN family, said, hey, if we're going to help build this highway with you, we're going out too and testing out our bearings. And they took a vehicle called the Panther 40. They made it all the way to San Francisco and did basically product development and testing in real world. They weren't the only ones, but it was pretty fascinating to find out that history. NTN supplied my bearings, and they happened to tell me about that they had that connection to the Lincoln Highway. I said, that's really neat. They had a nice write-up when they made it to San Francisco about the Panther 40 and the Bauer bearings, and pretty fascinating. So you think way back, and that's 110 years ago, give or take, and how far the advancements in bearings have come now just makes you wonder what it's going to be like in another 110 years, what NTN has on their plate for the future.
And like NTN with their Bauer bearings, there are other technology companies out there today whose forward-thinking ideas are shaping the transportation of tomorrow. Here's my friend David with more on what the future might look like.
You know, I've spoken with a lot of automotive aftermarket executives in my travels, and since they're movers and shakers, I like to ask them what they believe the future holds. Now, of course, nobody has a crystal ball, but there's no doubt based on my conversations that even an uncertain future is going to be a bright one. This is something reflected at AAPEX every year, how the future is inevitably bringing change to this industry and how the aftermarket can make the most of that change by being ready with the latest innovations. In fact, many times it's actually the aftermarket driving the automotive market as a whole into that future. Frankly, it's one of the biggest reasons the show continues to be a dominant force in this industry. When I asked DA Lubricant Company what the biggest change to the automotive aftermarket would be in the next 10 years, John Knoll, the company's executive vice president, said he had his eye on the continued push toward more sustainable operations. And you know, you don't always think of oils and lubricants in the same breath as sustainability, but John made some great points with his perspective. Here he is speaking on used oil analysis.
So, used oil analysis is very helpful, especially if you're an individual operator and have 5 or 6 or 100 pieces of equipment. You start to learn about what's going on with your equipment. Do I have an engine going out? Do I have a bearing going out? And that's very helpful to them to maintaining the life of their equipment, avoid catastrophic failure. But a benefit we get out of it, as we do thousands and hundreds of thousands of samples, we have been building up a database over the years of how equipment runs. How does it operate in certain conditions? Do these engines operate hotter than this engine? Do you see more wear in this brand of an engine or this bearing versus another? And what we're doing with that technology and with that data is really doing data mining, is trying to understand how we can better formulate our lubricants to the needs of the equipment that are out there, based on these thousands of samples. And it really gives us the ability to look forward and say, you know what, with this type of equipment, this type of operating conditions, we need to improve the performance in area X, Y, or Z of our product. So oil analysis is, in my view, is really twofold. It's the operator benefit, but from us, from a development standpoint, an R&D standpoint, it gives us tremendous knowledge.
Over at Standard Motor Products, I spoke with Aaron Schaefer, Director of Marketing Services, and John Herc, Vice President of Marketing for S&P's Vehicle Control Division, about the automotive aftermarket's future. Their minds went to electrification. Now, I anticipated them to say that a further electrified car park might negatively affect their business, but to my surprise, they made a great case for why they expect just the opposite to happen.
We have no crystal ball. We don't know what new vehicle sales are going to be like. But the aftermarket can predict. Our industry has the ability of accurately predicting our own future, and it's tied almost entirely to new vehicle sales. So if you were to say, where's the aftermarket going to be in 20 years with EVs? I have no idea. But if you say, where's the aftermarket going to be in 10 years with EVs? We can probably say they're going to represent probably 4% of what's coming in the base. because we, as in the aftermarket, what we essentially do, to distill it down, is we service 10 to 15-year-old vehicles. That's our sweet spot. And that is what the landscape is probably, that's what the landscape's gonna look like in 10 years. I mean, there was a lot of news last year about EV sales. They're growing, they're doubling. Yes, they are doubling. But 94% of vehicles sold last year still had an ICE engine. I'm not dismissing it, I'm not minimizing it. The world is changing, but the car park itself doesn't change as quickly as new vehicle sales does.
No, you're spot on with that. I mean, your average age of a vehicle is now climbing to 13 years.
Yeah.
So if you introduce something today, you've got 13 years at least that you're going to see that vehicle in that car park. So today is still dominated by ICE. We have to pay attention to that, but we also evolve with what future technology is going to be. In fact, I would add a piece to the future technology and say that we welcome it. We have a footprint that has design and engineer centers located throughout the world. We revel in trying to take on this new technology. Our folks are extremely resourceful to make sure that we build a better product than what was on the car. So we welcome it, and it keeps away anybody who just wants to source and put a part in a box.
Yeah, and if we're really talking about where the aftermarket's going to be in 10 years, entering the bays, it's not going to be vehicles lined up with work to their electric drive system, but it's probably going to be variable valve timing, direct injection service issues, turbo service issues. These are all, it's still on an ICE engine, but these are things that were not on a lot of ICE vehicles that are 2005 model years, even 2010 model years. I think in this transition to EV, what people have forgotten about is how much technology has been introduced and how much the traditional gasoline engine has evolved in the last 10 years. So whatever we're doing and servicing on gasoline or hybrid vehicles today is going to be very different than the bulk of the business of what that'll look like in 10 years. Because the engines and the systems are just much, much more advanced and with much, much tighter tolerances.
With all this talk of electrification, my next step was to visit one of the manufacturers of premium electrified commercial powertrains in South Carolina, Proterra. I sat down with the company's chief business officer, Chris Bailey, to better understand the technologies that someone working in the heart of the battery belt has his eye on right now. Yes, as expected, he agreed that electrification is a big one. Surprise! But I've personally seen so much innovation happening in electrifying the commercial segment, especially when it comes to last mile delivery. So I wondered if we might soon be seeing a big evolution in the electrified consumer market as well, based on borrowed commercial technologies.
I think actually it's working the other way. I think that the level of maturity in the passenger car space is pretty high. You take a look at the vehicle control systems, the machine vision systems that may be implemented on a Tesla as an example, or another type of vehicle from Ford or from GM or from VW. Those autonomous capabilities, those vehicle control systems, the human-machine interfaces between the occupant of the vehicle and the machine itself, those are all fairly well refined at this point. And I'd say that is a fairly symbiotic relationship between the passenger car space and the commercial space. And there's a lot to learn from both sides. Certainly, when you look at the commercial vehicle space, we're designing a product to last a very long amount of time over a very harsh application, and transferring those things that make that possible into the passenger car space would ultimately make those passenger cars more reliable and longer lasting. But in a passenger car application, you obviously have a very intimate relationship between the occupant of the vehicle and the technology of the vehicle itself. And I think there's some good read across from the passenger car space back to the commercial space.
One of the reasons the automotive aftermarket is so much fun is because so many industries within the aftermarket overlap so well with each other. As electric vehicles become more popular, we start to look at existing technologies and think, oh, that could fit well here too. Connected vehicles and sustainability is a perfect example of this. To explore more about what a melding of these will look like down the road, I rode up to Canada to speak with Sabina Martin, Associate Vice President of Product Management at Geotab.
Yeah, I would say it's a key focus area from us from a product perspective. We've really focused on, the foundations of vehicle data support. So we have almost 300 vehicle make model years. And you might be wondering, well, why is that important? We can build many features and many products, but if those only work for a subset of EVs on the road, then it's not going to be relevant for our customers. So I think that's continuing to be a focus for Geotab, is to make sure that as new vehicles come out, we're ahead in terms of our vehicle support. But also we've seen, increased utilization of our existing products. So, our Green Fleet dashboard, as companies set their emissions targets, I believe TELUS has a target of, 46% GHG emissions reduction by 2030, and they've already started to use our solutions to identify underutilized assets, which can help them. If they get rid of those assets, that's emission reduction and cost savings right there. And we've seen a 30% increase in the number of EVs being connected. So yeah, we're continuing to develop features and products and capabilities, and it's definitely one of our key focus areas at Geotab. And it really aligns to, I think, the why of everything that we do. We want to help make the world a better place and to reduce emissions, and it's a big corporate goal for many companies today.
At 1-800-EVERY-RIM OEM Wheels, with a massive inventory, we buy and sell reconditioned, new takeoff, and used OEM replacement wheels, all backed by over 150 years of combined experience. Text pictures to 951-RIM-TEXT or visit us online at 1-800-EVERYRIM.com. TransStar Industries is a global leader in aftermarket distribution with 45 years of experience, offering speedy delivery on transmission, differential, and AC parts through local stocked branches and a national distribution network. TransStar now offers high-quality OE recycled transmissions and transfer cases, a perfect choice for cost-conscious customers. TransStar is continuing to expand product offerings, including brakes, electrical, steering, suspension, and more, helping you to provide your customers with fast, reliable service. TransStar parts are available for online ordering through transcend.us or right through your shop management system. Ordering with TransStar has never been easier.
You can feel confident Continental is the smart choice in tires.
Can they handle extremes?
Anything for the guy who finds that one pothole.
Were they made by like a bajillion engineers? Yeah.
Really?
Really?
Really? Really. Welcome to the smart choice in tires.
The entire weight of today's vehicle is supported on a surface smaller than a credit card, inside the wheel hub assembly. With so much riding on it, why would you use something other than OE quality replacement parts? OE quality, premium product. BCA bearings by NTN. Next time on Road to AAPEX.
The Lincoln Highway eventually joined the railroad in Cheyenne. Here at Fort Bridger, it's a great example of early automotive traveling and what it was like.
Sissonville, West Virginia is home to Nitera's NGK Spark Plug North American manufacturing facility. There's big room for innovation here.
Lincoln is hard to miss as he's kind of watching over the travelers. The monument to Henry Joy, the pioneer, established us to be able to go from San Francisco to New York, the Lincoln Highway.